Started. All right. Sorry about that. 240th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? You know what it is. This is going to be a quick in and out podcast. I got a lot to talk about, not a lot of time to do it, so I'm not going to waste a lot of your time because I don't have a lot of time to waste. So let's jump straight into the proceedings this evening. You know how we do. We kick every episode off with a gem dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind. Let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T. Open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, real quick, want to give a shout out to Gamer2K for being the first in the comment section. What's up, Gamer2K? Thanks for holding the kid down and leaving a comment. So, Gem Droppin Session today, there was a report that tickled me. All right, tickled me pink. I got a nice little chuckle out of this. The report was the QB trade market is about to heat up. Oh, really? So I guess the stove is off. The oven is off. So what are we preheating? I mean, preheat. Like, what are we doing? Who are we trading for exactly? So apparently Commanders, Colts, Bucks, Saints, Panthers, Broncos, Steelers, all looking for quarterbacks. I told you the list is very expansive. A lot of teams looking for QBs, man. Brady retires. Roethlisberger retires. Wentz was a flame out in Indianapolis year one. The Broncos have been looking for a quarterback for the last decade, it seems like, since Peyton Manning retired. The list goes on and on and on and on, okay? So it's a mess, the quarterback position. And it always is. Every year, teams are looking for their guy, right? But I find it really hilarious that the QB trade market is about to heat up. Okay. First of all, what market are we speaking of? First of all, Aaron Rodgers isn't going anywhere. So there's all of this, conversation. Oh, Rodgers wasn't in the Packers, international promo. Well, they can't put him in there because they don't know if he's going to play or not. It's not because he may be traded. It's because if he decides to retire, they don't want false advertisement. It's really simple. Sort of like what the New Orleans Pelicans are doing with Zion Williamson right now. They put out some promos and they can't put Zion in the promos because they don't know if he's going to be there or not. And you don't want to false advertise. So you just leave him out. It's not hard. Don't make a lot of that. Aaron Rodgers is either playing for the Green Bay Packers or he's not playing at all. Okay, so he's out. He's off the list. Russell Wilson, to me, is intriguing because he holds a lot of the cards in Seattle because the Seahawks don't want to trade him. But no one wants to hold a quarterback against their will. No one wants to hold a guy hostage. The Packers essentially did that to Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron really didn't want to go anywhere. His feelings were hurt, okay? But he really didn't want to play anywhere else, okay? Russell Wilson really doesn't want to play anywhere else. And if the Seahawks, have an offseason that makes Russell Wilson feel like they're still trying to be competitive, I don't see the two splitting. And Russell doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to strong arm his way out. Not until he feels like there are no other options. He's been disrespected or something happens to the point where the relationship is fractured beyond repair. I don't think we're even close to that point being reached with Russell Wilson. He'll be back in Seattle is essentially what I'm trying to tell you, which is what I've been saying all offseason. I'll be shocked if he's moved. And the Seahawks have already said, we don't want to trade him. And Russell Wilson says, I want to be back in Seattle. I don't really understand what the problem is unless there's a contractual issue where Russell's like, yo, I want my bread and I want it now. And the Seahawks are like, yeah, I don't really know about that yet. So there could be a hang up there. But for me, Russell's not going anywhere. So no Rodgers, no Russell Wilson. Who are we trading for? Okay, there's Deshaun Watson, but we still don't know what his situation and all of the legalities that are there that are unsettled still look like. We don't know what the league's going to do with his situation. We don't know if he'll even be able to play, let alone help a team right away. So Deshaun Watson is interesting. I feel like he's the wild card because of all the guys, he's the one that is more likely to be moved, and he's the guy that I think could ultimately take a team that was middle of the pack last year, 7-10, 8-9, 6-11, whatever the case may be, and push them over the top like Brady did the Buccaneers 2 years ago and Matthew Stafford did the Rams last season. So Watson is interesting, but we don't even know if he's going to play. So then that takes us exactly where? And for me, the next guy is Jimmy Garoppolo. Are we fighting over Jimmy Garoppolo? Are we fighting over table scraps? I mean, what are we really talking about here? I mean, what is this market that they speak of? Who's trading for Jimmy? I mean, I get it. The draft this year leaves a lot to be desired. Okay. But is it that bad to the point where teams start fighting over Jimmy Garoppolo? I need help with this situation because I'm confused as to what trade market that they speak of exists. Okay, is someone trading for Carson Wentz? Did I miss something? Is someone trading when Carson Wentz was available last year? The only team that was even interested was the Indianapolis Colts. Is someone now more interested in Wentz this offseason after the season he just turned in with the Colts? I think the answer is a resounding no. So what trade market are we talking about? I mean, is someone trading for Teddy Bridgewater? I mean, what are we actually having a discussion about? So I find it really hilarious that the QB trade market is about to heat up. Heat up how? In what manner? The only guy that is even worthy of talking about is Deshaun Watson, and you don't even know what you're getting yourself into right now because of the legal situation and aspect to his, future. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. Right now, it looks like the league is like, hey, we don't really have anything to go off of right now, so we're going to keep our hands out of the cookie jar, but that could change very quickly. Again, I've said this already with the Deshaun Watson situation. The league doesn't have to do anything until they have to do something. And since he refuses to play and the Texans haven't traded him yet, they haven't come to that crossroads yet. They haven't had to cross that bridge. Since he's not in the position to step on a football field, they haven't had to make a tough decision yet. At some point, that TD will have to happen. We'll see when we get there, but we're not there yet. So I don't know. I find this hilarious that all these different teams are interested. At the end of the day, there will probably be one, maybe two trades max this offseason, and everybody else will have to find their quarterback either via the draft. They'll get one of these veteran retreads. Jameis Winston looks like he's going back to New Orleans. Everyone just assumed he would. I'm one of those people that assumed he would. And so you're picking from a very small, lot of quarterbacks. Mitchell Trubisky, okay, Marcus Mariota, Drew Lock will probably be available this offseason and be an interesting name. I mean, these are guys that you'll probably have to siphon through to figure out if this is a guy that I think we can revive his career here and fill in the blank. So, I mean, honestly speaking, what are we talking about? What QB market? That I got a nice chuckle out of that because I'm like, did I miss something? Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. I don't think I did. I just think that, there's always this offseason where you are looking for stories, things to talk about, a heading to get people to click. That one missed the boat for me. I didn't even bother to click on that one because I'm like, there can't be there's no QB market to heat up. To me, you're going to get 1 or 2 trades max. Because I don't, and I'm the one that doesn't anticipate anything happening. I told you guys last year, I don't see Deshaun Watson being traded. Deshaun Watson wasn't traded. I was adamant that Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to be traded. Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to be traded. I'm going to die on this hill that Aaron Rodgers is going to finish his career a Green Bay Packer, and something that was interesting that was coming out of the Aaron Rodgers situation, because ultimately he can sign a new deal, and there was rumors that maybe he'll sign the first $50 million per year deal at the quarterback position. Well, any position in football, but quarterback position, $50 million per year, the first quarterback to hit that threshold. And he was saying, look, that's not something that I'm necessarily looking to go after per se. It's not something that has to happen for me to sign back with Green Bay on a new deal. But something that was interesting coming out of that was maybe they would trade Jordan Love if they read up with Aaron Rodgers on, say, a 3-year extension. And that would put them in a position where Jordan Love's not going to see the field if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy and upright. Could they trade Jordan Love? And their GM, Brian Gutekunst, already has come out and said, I'm not interested in trading Jordan Love. So, I mean, again, it's lying season, so I don't really know how far to go with that. But that would be interesting. Jordan Love being available would be interesting. And again, I've already said you'd have to then go back to how you felt about him coming out of Utah State, because you can't go off of preseason. You can't go off of the limited amount of reps you've seen with him, especially that Chiefs game last year. It wasn't pretty, but it was his first career start. You don't have a lot to go off of. You'd have to essentially say, how did I feel about this kid coming out of Utah State? And that would be interesting to me. But none of these other options, especially Jimmy Garoppolo, none of them get me excited. If I'm a fan of any of these teams, the Steelers, the Buccaneers, the Saints, Washington, I'm not excited. The Panthers, this doesn't move the needle for me. I'm not excited about Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay? Kirk Cousins isn't going to be traded, and we're going to talk about him a little bit later on in the show. There's nothing to see here. Derek Carr is going to remain in Vegas. Russell Wilson's going to remain in Seattle. Aaron Rodgers is going to remain in Green Bay, or he's going to retire. I don't see him retiring. He's going to stay in Green Bay. I don't see any shuffling of the deck. Okay, Baker Mayfield was interesting for 2 seconds. The Browns shut that down immediately. We're not trading Baker Mayfield. Get out of our face. Don't ring our line. We're not trading him. That's the smart thing to do. Okay, don't put yourself in the position that these other teams are in looking for a guy, because it's not easy to find one. Even though we don't know if Baker Mayfield's the guy or not, at least you still have an opportunity to find out. So there's no market. There's no market. Nobody wants Teddy Bridgewater. Okay, no one's trading for Teddy Bridgewater. They did that last year. The Broncos did that last year. Okay, this market is awful. There's no one to trade for. So what QB trade market is about to heat up? Give me a break. Anyway, I digress. I just found that funny. And anyway, I am tickled by the whole QB market because, yeah, look, I get it. The QB crop this year, uninspiring, and it may push teams to be a little bit more desperate in the free agent / trade market. But again, this isn't like last year where there were actually some options that you said, hey, look, maybe this guy, like Washington fans really convinced themselves, really tried to brainwash themselves into thinking, hey, Ryan Fitzpatrick, man, he's playing some of the best football of his career. Like, at least that inspired hope. Even though I wasn't one of those people that felt that way, still, people were trying to convince themselves, hey, why not? Carson Wentz, why not? He's back with the guy that had him playing some of the best football of his career. Okay? And Frank Wright, why not? That was something you could get excited about if you were an Indianapolis Colts fan. Okay? Teddy Bridgewater with that defense in Denver. I'm just saying, maybe not. There's none of that this year. Jameis Winston in New Orleans, hey, had a chance to sit behind Drew Brees. He's learned a lot. Maybe. It just it doesn't feel that way this year. Matthew Stafford being traded, okay? Last offseason, there felt like you could really take that step. Even the offseason before that. with Tom Brady dangling out there and Drew Brees potentially, and I knew he wasn't going to go anywhere else, but Brees was out there as well, and there were options available 2 years ago and last year. That's not the case this year. And the draft in those 2 seasons was actually really good in 2021 and 2020. So even if you didn't get a guy in the trade market or someone in free agency, you felt good about the draft. That's not the case this year. So it's going to be interesting to see what teams decide to do. I think more likely than not, all these desperate teams that we're talking about, they're going to end up having to draft a quarterback. Because there's no trade market to take advantage of. So anyway, I just thought I'd talk about that very quickly. Let's transition into In Case You Missed It. So a lot of things transpired since the last time we spoke. I'm going to dive into a number of them. We know the 2022 NFL Combine gets underway this week. So those guys are now in Indy, and they're doing all of the things that we don't get to see, the things that really are important, the meetings. The most important thing you get at the Combine is the physical. Okay, the physicals, the medical, those are the things that these evaluators care about the most. Yeah, it's great to sit down with these prospects, pick their brains for a little while, kind of figure out if you can get into their heads and figure out how much these guys love football. Does it matter to them? Where does it rank in the importance, in the pantheon of their lives? And, you know, just see how smart they are on the whiteboard and things of that nature. Just kind of see if you can get a feel for these guys. But at the end of the day, we're going to judge them on what they do on the field. But these teams, look, some of these guys are going to make some money, right? If we're questioning your speed, you go out, run a blazing 40, that's going to help your stock. If they love you as a football player, but they just weren't sure how fast you were, I think a great example of that, Justin Jefferson. You know, you watch the tape, you love him as a football player, but you weren't quite sure how fast he really was. I said, I think he's a 4.4 guy, but I wasn't sure because you didn't always see it. He goes out, runs a 4.4, first round pick, end of discussion. Probably should have gone higher. Obviously, hindsight is 2020. But those are the types of opportunities that guys have, at the Combine and at their pro days. And so, the Combine is great for that. But, I think the teams are more interested in medicals and sitting down and having a chance to talk to these guys. So with that said, in case you missed it, couple of big names coming up in the 2022 NFL draft will not be participating on the field. One of the star tackles in this draft, Evan Neal, will not be participating in the Combine. He may be the first tackle. He could be the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. The tackle from Alabama, he's going to wait until his pro day to showcase his skills. And again, at this point, I mean, I don't really care anymore. This used to be a big deal, whether a guy was going to work out at the Combine or not. The Combine is so overrated. I used to get really excited about the Combine. I don't even care about the Combine anymore, to be honest with you, because there's still the pro day. My biggest thing is, I just want to see how fast you run. That's it. If I'm questioning your speed, I want to see how fast you run. If you're a tight end, if you're a running back, you're a wide receiver, you're a DB, you're a linebacker, I just want to see how fast you run. I mean, defensive ends, I don't care how fast your 40 is. I really don't. Offensive linemen, I don't care how fast your 40 is. It's great if you're a tremendous athlete, like Tristan Wirfs was a couple of years ago. You go, wow, that guy's a tremendous athlete, and it translates, and this guy's dominating at the NFL level. That's great. But then we've also seen guys like Orlando Brown stink it up at the Combine and still turn out to be one hell of a player. So at the end of the day, for me, the Combine is really about, are you fast or not? Because you can go in there, drop a bunch of balls, look really bad like Allen Robinson did at his Combine, and still turn out to be one hell of a wide receiver. So Joe Hayden ran slow, ended up cleaning it up at his pro day. Again, the Combine is severely overrated. Another guy that's not going to participate on the field in the drills is Derek Stingley, a guy that I loved a couple of years ago at LSU. Last year, and even the year, in his freshman year, he was the best player to me defensively in college football. And then the last 2 years, kind of invisible. injuries haven't helped his situation. COVID wasn't kind to that LSU program. They've since changed head coaches. It's been a crazy 2 years for that program. And Stingley was a guy that kind of just fell by the wayside, but the talent is definitely there. But he's still recovering from Liz Frank's surgery, so he's not going to perform on the field. And then finally, another guy that won't perform on the field is Matt Corral. I think that's the most overrated position at the combine is quarterbacks. Like, you can't glean anything from quarterbacks at the combine. The only thing you can see is how big a guy's arm is. And that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but it's cool to go out and see Josh Allen decide on a go ball. He's just going to let it rip, let a guy run 40 yards down the field when you're supposed to be anticipating on that drill, but he just says, nah, I'm just going to showcase my arm and launch it 65, 70 yards in the air. We've seen guys do that with massive arms at the combine. Justin Herbert did it a couple of years ago. Josh Allen did it about 4 years ago. We've seen guys say, okay, I'm just going to let one rip so you know that I've got a gun. But other than that, I mean, who cares about what these quarterbacks do, throwing the football to guys they don't know. And yeah, I think it's super overrated. So Matt Corral not performing, and again, he's got a reason, coming off of ankle injury that ended his season in the bowl game. He's going to continue to rehab that, and then he'll have a pro day where it'll be scripted, and that's what's more important. If you don't light your pro day up, that's a problem for me. Teddy Bridgewater didn't light his pro day up. Remember how bad that was? He's still in the league. Teddy Two Gloves is, and he started in like 80 different spots. So to me, all of this stuff is really overrated. My biggest thing is, can you run? Are you fast or aren't you fast? That's what I want to know. If you can pick them up and put them down, that's what I want to see at the combine. A wise man once told me, fast guys run fast, slow guys run slow. It's when the opposite happens that it becomes a story. That's all I'm really looking for. If you get beat up by the football in the gauntlet drill, oh my God, he can't catch. Okay, fine. Jamar Chase couldn't catch last year in the preseason. He just turned in one of the greatest rookie campaigns we've seen in NFL history. A lot of this stuff is overrated. Don't buy the hype. So, yeah, these guys aren't going to participate. There may be more. We'll find out about more guys who these scouts want to see compete. Get out of my face. Okay. Anyway, in case you missed it, 2024 NFL Draft locale has finalists. Okay, so remember, they're now switching where the draft happens every year. It used to be New York every single year. They've changed the locale. It was in Philly one year. It was in Cleveland another year. Vegas was supposed to get it. I don't know if did Vegas get it last year. They were supposed to get it, and then COVID happened. But in any event, they're trying to figure out where they're going to have it next. And so 2024 is a couple of drafts down the road. 3 finalists: Green Bay, Detroit, and Washington, D.C. For me, who wants to have a draft in Green Bay? Okay, the draft is in the spring. It's still going to be cold, more likely than not, in Wisconsin. It's Green Bay. I mean, really? Detroit is fine. But to me, of those 3 choices, it's a no-brainer. It's D.C., if you ask me. But whatever. That's something that I found interesting, not important, okay? As a wise man always likes to say. In case you missed it, this is interesting and important to me because me being a Washington fan, I think there are a lot of Washington fans who find this comment to be true. And I'm going to ask you guys, do you feel the same way? And I think I know I'm going to get a resounding yes, but I'm going to ask anyway. So Mike Zimmer reportedly, openly criticized and complained about Kirk Cousins, saying, quote, didn't make enough winning plays, closed quote. So essentially, Mike Zimmer said a lot of opportunities for the Vikings to win close games, and Kirk Cousins wasn't clutch. That was one of the biggest complaints of Washington fans. I was one of those fans that wanted Kirk to stay in Washington because when you don't have a quarterback, it's almost like what we tell the youth of America. If you don't have another job, you don't quit the job you currently have until you have another one. We quit the quarterback that we had, and then we didn't have another one, so we had to then do something stupid like trade for Alex Smith and give up Kendall Fuller in the process. So we panicked because we didn't have another option, and then had to go do something to make the decision that we had just made look like it wasn't that bad of a decision when it turned out to be terrible, because we really haven't found another quarterback since Kirk Cousins in Washington. That said, just doesn't change the fact that people feel like Kirk Cousins wasn't clutch. And I think you ask Vikings fans, And I think it's the same way it was in Washington when he left. You're going to have a camp of and faction of Vikings fans that feel like, look, it's not Kirk's fault. This defense has been tragically bad the past 2.5 years. Guys can't stay healthy like Danielle Hunter. They've turned over the defense. There's some young guys in the secondary. There have been guys that have underachieved at various positions. So, yeah, there's been a problem defensively, and Kirk has had statistically some of his best years the last 2 years, and it hasn't been enough because the defense and special teams 2 years ago in particular, when they couldn't find a kicker and they had the ex-Dallas Cowboys kicker, Dan Bailey, who kept missing kicks. So you could look and place blame some of everywhere except with Kirk, yet Mike Zimmer claims that, quote, didn't make enough winning plays. I find that very interesting because I didn't think Mike Zimmer actually coached the best in critical situations. I think a great microcosm of his coaching career was the Dallas game on Sunday night where he called 2 timeouts in a row, mismanaged the clock, and I thought really hurt them in that football game. So I didn't think Mike Zimmer was all that great. I didn't think he made winning decisions, enough winning decisions during games to help the Vikings win some football games. But look, I think he's not wrong about Kirk Cousins, but I don't think he's 100% right about him either. Is he the most clutch quarterback? No, but I can find a lot of instances where Kirk Cousins was clutch for the Minnesota Vikings. And I think that's where some people fail to give him his just due. In case you missed it, Troy Aikman potentially to Monday Night Football. Now, I know some of you don't care. I do, however, care because not everyone watches the Manning cast. I tend to go to the Manning cast when the game isn't all that appealing. You get 2 teams that stink and there's not really anything that you want to necessarily see. Then you go to the Manning cast because now I need to be entertained. They talk too much about things other than football. Those guests, they're distracting from the game. There are things happening, penalties that happen. They don't even acknowledge them. So I was initially all in on the Manning cast. And then as really good games started to happen and a lot of the big details of the game were being missed, I started to venture back to the original telecast. So I do think there's value in finding the right team. I'm a Troy Aikman fan. I think he does a really good job. I know a lot of people think that Troy Aikman is a homer or he's not that good. He's this, he's that. I really think Troy Aikman does a really good job as an analyst. And I think that they've got to find a way. So apparently, 5 years, $90 million is the deal that might have been reached. There's still a little bit of, question as to is it finalized, but I think he's going to be on Monday Night Football. We talked about this. We alluded to the fact that he might have done his last game for Fox. Looks like that's come to fruition. But who are they going to pair him with? Like they can't just leave, Scott Levy, there, right? Like Steve Levy's not going to be his play-by-play guy. Like who are they going to pair him with? He needs a real play-by-play guy. I think this is where ESPN needs to flex some of that Disney money, right? And they need to go out there and get themselves a real play-by-play guy, whether that's Al Michaels. I don't know if he still got his fastball or not. At one time, that fastball was humming in there at 96, 97. I think that fastball is now right around 89. It's center cut too. So there are times where Al's like, yeah, that's not the Al Michaels I fell in love with, but he's better than anything ESPN has to offer. That's for sure. And then there's been a conversation about Joe Buck potentially traveling with his best bud over to ESPN to do the Monday night games. I wouldn't have any problems with it, but then that would put Fox in a bind because that would take their entire number one team. Speaking of number one, if they, in fact, lose Troy Aikman, but Buck stays, they're going to have to replace Troy Aikman. The logical choice right now is Sean Payton, but then you're hearing innuendos out there that Tom Brady is a guy that, these networks are salivating over potentially getting. That would be a bidding war if Tom decided that's something he wanted to do. So Peyton right now definitely going to end up on someone's broadcast team. Can he jump all the way to 1 though? I mean, this guy's never done it. You're just gonna put him in the big chair. I mean, CBS did it with Tony Romo. Look how that's worked out. So clearly, there's precedence has been set before, but it'll be interesting to see what Fox does, because they want to hit it big like CBS did with Tony Romo, and they think Sean Payton may be their version of John Gruden potentially, but that not so fast. Amazon is interested in not only Sean Payton, they're also talking about Kirk Herbstreit. And for me, if you're not going to keep Kirk Herbstreit with Fowler, I don't want him by himself. Those two are a pair for me. Those two are a combo that I have to have together. Fowler and Herbstreit, they come together as a pair. If you separate them, I don't know if you get the same quality or not. So, because I actually enjoyed them doing that Monday night game to start off the season when they would do the doubleheaders and they would put Herbstreit and Fowler to do those games. I actually enjoyed them doing the NFL games. So I wouldn't mind that. But if you're separating them, I don't know if I would be in favor of that or not. Anyway, I digress. In case you missed it, Kyler Murray, Arizona Cardinals, on the same page. What did I tell you guys about that situation? Like, don't read anything into it. You know, all these desperate, thirsty teams that need a quarterback. Hey, Kyler Murray may be available. No, he's not. And I told you guys as much when he cleared his social media and scrubbed it of all of, anything Arizona Cardinals. That's the new move for these young boys. When I'm mad, I'm upset, I'm in my feelings, I'm gonna scrub my social media of the team that I currently play for to show how upset I am. Grr. Okay, cool, whatever, dude. This was always about money, Yeah, and I told you, Kyler Murray, he's a sensitive thug and he needs a hug. Right? Like the whole, they're blaming me for the playoff loss. Grow some balls, okay? Get some thicker skin, stop bitching, and get better, okay? Your team wasn't good, but you weren't any good in that game either. So whether he was look, as a quarterback, that comes with the territory. When you're really good, you're going to get all the praise. When your team stinks and you don't play well, you're going to get all the blame, whether you deserve it or not. So suck it up. At the end of the day, it was more about him wanting new money than anything else. He's going to get that bread because the Cardinals aren't moving on from him. He's clearly shown that he's the franchise guy. There's nothing to talk about here. He'll get his money. He wants it early, and that's the precedence that has been set, but few guys have gotten it after 3 years, and that's what he's trying to do. But he's in that conversation when you talk about guys that have done it at a high enough level that can get it after 3 years. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, those guys, he deserves to be in that conversation. All right, and so I think he's going to ultimately get what he wants, but I don't necessarily know if I love the means. But his agent has come out and said, look, everything's all good, but actions speak louder than words. You can talk to us about how much you love Kyler. That's great. Show us with the money, okay? We'll see. He'll get his money. He'll be in Arizona. There's really nothing to see here. Move on. Nothing to see here, okay? In case you missed it, this is what I feared, okay? This is what I feared. I knew this would happen because there are a lot of soft individuals that want everybody to have a turn because it's not fair. It's not fair when we don't get a turn in overtime. They scored a touchdown. We should get a chance too. NFL competition committee will discuss proposal to guarantee each team having an overtime possession. It's already going to be on the table. The Indianapolis Colts have made the suggestion already. This is a bunch of bullshit. And you guys know how I feel about this. We've done multiple episodes on this, so I don't really need to rehash how I feel. And just by my reaction already, you know how I feel. It's fine the way it is. Life is not fair. And if you can't get a stop, you don't. Look, I thought when a team could beat you with a 57-yard field goal in overtime on the very first possession, I thought that was bullshit. Like, that's tough. That's a bitter pill to swallow. You stop a team at, the 39-yard line. They line up. They kick a 57-yarder. They make it. You don't see the football. That's tough. They eliminated that aspect. If you can't stop a team from going 75 yards, I can't help you. I can't help you. I'm sorry. And so, the game that's the poster child for this, obviously, Chiefs-Bills from the divisional round last year, an epic game, one of the best playoff games we've seen in NFL history. You could go even further back to Chiefs-Patriots, Patrick Mahomes' first NFC or AFC championship game against Brady. The Patriots win the toss, take it down the field. Again, D Ford with the offsides. That doesn't happen. If he doesn't do that, they could potentially win that football game. So, again, a lot of things have to happen. At the end of the day, get a stop. Get a stop. Anyway, I digress. They're going to talk about it. They're going to discuss it. Doesn't mean they're going to change it, but I think they're laying the ground, the groundwork to make the change, and I think it's garbage. In case you missed it, Giants unlikely to pick up the fifth-year option on quarterback Daniel Jones. I find this to be very interesting because when they hired their new coach, Brian Daboll from Buffalo, the thought process was he's going to come in and he's going to transform Daniel Jones into a Josh Allen light, a great value Josh Allen. They're going to maximize his athleticism. They're going to make him a more dynamic passer by kind of narrowing the focus of what they're going to ask him to do. They're going to make the reads easier. They're going to use his legs and his ability to get outside the pocket. They're going to make him a threat. They're going to be a lot of RPOs. They're going to really take Daniel Jones to the next level and get him back to what he looked like as a rookie when he really took the league by storm with the 27 touchdowns over 13 or 14 interceptions. Yeah, there were fumbles in there too, I'm aware, but he looked good. The Giants thought, man, we got a guy. He was Danny Dimes after that rookie season, right? Now, they're kind of like, don't really know if we want to pick up this fifth-year option or not. And what that says to me is that, A, the Giants aren't out of the market for a quarterback in this year's draft. That's what it says, A. And B, if there were quarterbacks that we loved in this year's draft, like last year's draft, the Giants would be all in on one of those guys. So, and C, Brian Daboll and company, they don't love Daniel Jones because even if he was really intrigued, but they didn't love him, but they were super intrigued by Daniel Jones, you just pick up the fifth-year option. Okay, it's not going to kill you. Yeah, there's a lot of money that's guaranteed to him in that fifth year, and that's why you don't pick it up if you don't love him. But generally, with a first-round quarterback that you're not sure on, like a Marcus Mariota, like a Jameis Winston, you pick up that fifth-year option because you don't know. Sam Darnold, the Panthers, and the Jets, you pick up the fifth-year option because you're not sure. They're pretty much telling us, we pretty much know. We don't really want him long-term. Okay. But what if he lights it up this year on the Brian Daboll? You don't pick up the fifth-year option. Oops. So I'll see. We'll see about it, but I don't know if that's the right move or not. In case you missed it, Eric Bieniemy staying in Kansas City on a one-year deal. His contract expired after this season, and so they're bringing him back on a one-year deal. We've talked about Eric Bieniemy and the farce that is his situation of not being a head coach at this point. I don't know the circumstances surrounding why he hasn't gotten a job. He could not be a good interviewer, and that makes a difference. If you can't communicate to me and articulate how you're going to make my organization better, if we give you the reins and the controls, how you're going to take it and run with it, it's hard for me to then think you're going to be able to communicate that message to my players and get this thing going in the right direction. So I don't know if it's an interview thing or whatever the case may be, but for whatever reason, he can't seem to find a job that suits him or an organization that feels like he's the right guy for the job. So once again, he's going to be back in Kansas City as their offensive coordinator. At this point, I don't know if the guy's going to get a head coaching job. He may have to go to the collegiate ranks to do so, which is a damn shame. But in any event, that's in case you missed it. So let's wrap up the show with garbage time. And I want to have a quick discussion about a few players on some teams that they have interesting decisions to make as far as restructure or release. So I'm thinking about this, and I thought about this because Michael Thomas restructured his deal. So did Ryan Ramczyk with New Orleans. Remember, we talked about the Saints being in salary cap hell, and there was a Saints fan that came on the show that had left a comment. I think he super chatted, as a matter of fact, and he said, "Hey, we got ways to get some money. We good cap wise." And Ryan Ramczyk and Michael Thomas both restructure, and that frees up just like that $34 million. Okay, so if you got cap guys that are smart, and all these teams do, you can be in cap hell 1 second and you're fine the next. And so, but I've always said this: when you go to a player and ask him to restructure, you're usually, or for me, it's really the pay cut. But restructure is kind of the same deal. It's not apples to apples, because restructure is, hey, I'm just going to give you some more of your money up front, backload the end of your contract, bring down that cap hit number for the year, and give you some upfront money, almost like a signing bonus. So you just get more of your money right now. We backload the contract with base salary, so by the time we get there, we'll deal with it then. That's restructure. Pay cut is really simple. We're paying you too much money. We want you to reduce your base salary. We're not looking to reallocate funds. We just want you to take less of it. And if you say no, I've always said, if you're prepared to ask someone to take a pay cut, or in certain instances restructure, you better be prepared to release that player if they say no. For me, it's really about the pay cut. Restructure, it's tough because not every situation is ideal for you to be able to cut a player. And I'm going to have one of those here. But I got a list of players, a few guys that I want to discuss real quick. And you tell me what you think. So restructure or release. So you start with Landon Collins in Washington. This is a name, if you're a Washington fan, it's come up multiple times as to what Washington will do. His cap hit for the upcoming season, $16.9 million. So essentially $17 million for Landon Collins. Who thinks Landon Collins is worth $17 million? His dead cap number is $9.6 million. So you're talking about a savings of over $7 million if you cut him, if you're Washington. So I think they're gonna go to him to restructure first. And if Landon doesn't want, and I don't think it's even a restructure, I think they're gonna ask him to take a pay cut. And if Landon says no, they're gonna cut him. It's really simple, because there's so much to gain there. There's $7 million there to gain for Washington, and I think they feel like they've got enough depth at safety, and they're going to add to it, I think, this offseason, whether it's via free agency and or the draft. So for me, Landon Collins is a prime example of a team that's going to approach a player, say, hey, we need you to take less. And if they say no, they're going to cut it. What do you guys think? Landon Collins restructure or release? How about Ezekiel Elliott? Zeke Elliott in Dallas. This is interesting because the Cowboys are in no position to cut him. Here's why. His cap number for the upcoming season is the highest of any running back in the upcoming season at $18.2 million. It's a lot of money for a running back that seems to be on the downside of his career. Now, he dealt with some injuries, and, we'll see what happens. He came into camp in great shape and then got a knee injury in like week 4 and never was the same. We'll see what happens. At the end of the day, $18.2 million for a running back is a lot of money. However, if the Cowboys approach Zeke Elliott and say, hey, we need you to restructure because we are in cap hell, which the Cowboys are, and they're usually in cap hell every single year, and he says no, what are they going to do? Dead cap number of $30 million. So they're in no position to cut him, because if you cut him, not only are you on the hook for the $18 million, you're going to add another 12 to that. So they can't cut him. They cut him, and they're essentially losing $12 million worth of cap space. So they're in no position to cut Zeke. But if he says, nah, I'm good with my 18, thanks, but no thanks, they're screwed. We'll see what happens there. But it's interesting because I said this last year. I meant it last year. I feel even stronger about it now. The best running back on that team is Tony Pollard. So I think they've got a decision to make there. But it's not a really easy one because, again, the dead cap number pretty much says, you can't cut me, nah, not a boo-boo, you can't cut me. How about Eric Kendricks in Minnesota? This is interesting because if the Vikings go to Eric Kendricks and they're not in a great position cap-wise, then they could use some cap relief. If they go to Eric Kendricks, who's due $13.5 million in base salary this year, his dead cap number is only 5.9, so essentially $6 million. So you're saving $7 million if you cut Eric Kendricks, if he says no to a restructure. He's 29 years old, okay, and he's going into his year 30. He's still playing at a relatively high level, man. When healthy, he's still a quality NFL linebacker. If he gets released, I think there'll be a lot of teams very interested in his services. Can the Vikings afford to lose a guy on a defense that's already struggling? Can they afford to lose an Eric Kendricks who's a leader on that football team? I don't know, but when you're in a position that they're in cap-wise, things have to happen for you to get to where you need to get, and that's a number that looks very appetizing if you're the Vikings. So that's interesting. I think he's a guy that would actually take, the restructure. Give me my money up front. I want to stay here. My best friend's on the team, and Anthony Barr. I could see Eric Kendricks being a guy that restructures for the team's sake, but that's an interesting situation there. This is even more interesting because when he's on the field, he is a massive productivity guy, but he wasn't on the field last year, and it really hurt the Green Bay Packers, and that's edge rusher Zadarius Smith. Here's a guy that was tremendous for the Packers back in 2020. He spent pretty much the entire season injured with a back injury. Backs are nothing to play with. He may not be the same guy, with that back injury. Who's to say moving forward? But $27.6 million in base salary for Zadarius Smith this year. The Packers could use all the money they can get. They've already restructured Aaron Jones, and they're looking to restructure more guys to free up more cap space just in case they decide to do something with Aaron Rodgers and or Devontae Adams. If they cut him $12.3 million of dead cap, so you're talking about over $15 million of cap savings if you move on from Kendricks. Zadarius Smith. I don't know, man. That's a lot of money. And look, he was really good 2 years ago. And even when he came back in that playoff game, he was really good in that game. They need him. But at what cost? That's interesting. I think he would take the pay cut or the restructure. But I don't know. That's a lot of money, man, for a team that could definitely use the cap relief. So that's another interesting name. And I know a lot of teams that would love to get their hands on a Zadarius Smith should he come available if the Packers were to have to do something drastic and irrational like release Zadarius Smith. We've seen guys like him of his stature get released because of cap situations. Last year was a great example of a lot of guys. Now the cap's going up. Last year the cap went down. So a lot of teams had to make tough decisions. He'd be an interesting one to say the least. And then finally, we talked about Michael Thomas already. That was a no-brainer for me. If I'm the New Orleans Saints, you go to Michael Thomas. His cap number was $22 million. His dead money was $20 million. I'd cut him for $2 million with the way his situation has gone the last 2 years. I'd cut his ass if he'd said no. Even if it's only $2 million, I don't give a shit. If he comes back and he's the Michael Thomas of old, just because of what you put us through and how you screwed us last year, and at this point, I need some relief. You better not have anything other than, what do you need me to do? That's what you need to say out your mouth, or else I'm cutting your ass. Well, he did the Saints a solid, restructured. So did Ryan Ramczyk, as I said. And so they freed up $34 million worth of cap space. They've still got work to do in New Orleans, but that will go a long way in helping them make some moves this offseason. I know they'd love to hold on to Teron Armstead. I just don't see any way that is possible. It's rare that big-time tackles like Teron Armstead hit the free agent market, but it looks like that's exactly what's going to happen in New Orleans. And some teams out there like the Jets, like the Jags, like the Giants, for instance. I don't know what everyone's cap situation looks like. Don't think the Giants can afford a Teron Armstead right now, but I know a team like the Jags, who have plenty of cap space, would love to get their hands on a guy like Teron Armstead. When healthy, one of the better left tackles in all of football. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for today's show. I told you it was going to be an in and out type of affair. I thank you guys for joining me. Do me a huge favor. If you haven't already done so, hit the like button. All right. For more great content, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And look, we bat like cook crack. There's going to be more consistency now. February has come, and after today, it will have gone, and then we'll really hit the ground running with this draft stuff, as March is really when things start to ramp up. We get into the combine, and then we go to these pro days, and then, we really start steamrolling towards April and the draft. So things are about to get really interesting. The start of the new league year. We've already opened up the window for the franchise tag. So that's coming to an end probably in the next week and a half. Then we get to the start of the new league year. We get to that tampering window, which teams are already tampering. They'll start that process at the combine this week, when they'll start talking about potential trades and start talking to agents about, free agents, and, kind of gauging the interest of a player, and, whether they can get that guy to sign on the dotted line with their team. That process is starting now at Indy. So, things are about to go into hyperdrive, as they always do this time of the year in the NFL. But that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me. Look forward to chopping it up with you on Wednesday. Thursday, remember, combine coverage begins Thursday. So will my combine coverage. And again, remember what I always tell you. I watch the combine for 6, 7, 5 hours at a time. So you don't have to, and trust me, you don't want to. I got you if you don't want to. And why would you want to? I don't know. Stop asking. Anyway, you guys get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys know what it is. God bless. Good night.